Hey guys, welcome to Local Energy. It is week 31 of 2025. Last week, Wade and I met up in person in Oklahoma City, went to the Mid-Continent Energy Forum, and after had a chance to catch up over dinner and just talk about life, what we're doing with work, and a couple ideas that we maybe have for the future of this podcast. We're so encouraged by the community of people that we've had a chance to interact with. So the DMs, the text messages, the phone calls, the emails, all of that has been just great as we're learning together about the basics of oil and gas and then digging into some of the details. And anyways, if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube yet, we'd love to have you there. Head over to localenergy.io. That's our website. We couldn't get the .com, so localenergy.io. I've been fortunate to make personal connections with many of you and just talk to you whether you're driving out to the field for the day or you're heading home after work or you're just wanting to share a question or maybe a topic that we should consider talking about. So thank you guys for being part of this with us. And without further ado, here is this week's episode of Local Energy. All right, Wade, another week, but this week's a little different because I've actually met you in person finally.
That's right.
Yeah, Oklahoma City last week. It was a great time out in the city.
Yep.
Gosh,
What
just
did you think of the National?
The National was absolutely fantastic hotel.
Gorgeous, right?
Yeah, the food was great. I think I went to every independent coffee shop. I went to the bombing museum. I went to the cowboy museum. I don't know if you've been there, but they have a room that's full of barbed wire and it goes through the history of barbed wire.
Yeah.
I was in there for 30, 45 minutes, just like opening, like I was blown away. I loved every minute of it. And then obviously meeting you and getting to hang out was great too. So ahead of schedule from our October initial plan meeting, still planning on coming out in October, but hopefully
we'll get you out on a rig.
Yes, that's the plan. So anyways, I do have some personal news for you that I want to share, which is that I watched Interstellar.
What did you think?
Okay, so
did you let the weird part really ruin it for you?
The whole movie was weird. What are you talking about?
It was amazing.
Okay, all right. Amazing. It's a good movie. I'm not going to ever speak badly about a man's favorite movie. I can't do it. But what I will tell you is that I think Chris Nolan thinks he's smarter than he is when he shoots these films. Now, if that puts a complete, I think he puts these Easter eggs in and then thinks that he's clever. And I'm like, not really. I don't know. That's my personal opinion. Again, I think it's very visually stimulating and interesting, but I don't know. Yeah, not sure.
All right. I absolutely loved it. And I agree with the visually stimulating, interesting. It's fun. When I watch a movie, man, I just get into the movie. I turn my brain off. I'm not thinking about future plot. I was watching a movie with my daughter last night and she's like, oh, she's saying what's going to happen next. And I was like, that just sounds like an exhausting way to watch a movie. And so I think I get more into the entire feel of the movie more than trying to break it apart. Now, I'm not I also love Interstellar. So I've probably watched it at least 8 to 10 times. And so, I have thought about it. I love all the little details and all that stuff. And I don't think it's pretentious or anything like that.
No.
I love that the sound in the background on Miller's planet represents a passing of time on Earth. It wasn't a year. It was
it's 23 years or something. Some bizarre number.
It was every second was 7 days or so. I can't remember what it was.
Right.
But I just love finding out those little things long after the fact, after I've watched the movie, so.
I agree. I think I had to watch it. Obviously I don't watch a ton of movies. And so when someone says, hey, you have to watch this. Now, the other problem, I'll throw this out there. I don't know if you're married to a woman like my wife, but I watched it with my wife. And the whole time she's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I can't tell you what's going on because you keep asking what's going on. And so it's hard to explain. Maybe I have to watch it again by myself, but I don't know if I have 3 hours to do that again. So
I'm definitely not a movie talker.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to talk about what's going on, whatever. If I don't understand, I'm like, it's only because I'm not supposed to understand, and they're going to reveal it later.
Right.
So that's kind of where I am. But
so my promise to you before I come out to Oklahoma again. All right. So I've got Tenet to watch. I
was gonna say, if you didn't like Interstellar,
I'm gonna watch it though.
Maybe you shouldn't watch Tenet.
I'm gonna do it. I have to.
Go to Rotten Tomatoes. Everybody loves Interstellar.
Okay, well I'm gonna do it anyways.
Like a lightning rod.
And then you said what is it? The smartest guys in the room, or smartest? Is it
Yeah,
something?
Enron. Yeah,
Okay,
Enron, the smartest
Enron.
guys in the room.
Okay,
That's more. Yeah, that's a documentary.
I
That one.
got that. More
That one's
realistic.
great.
And then, gosh, there was one more that you told me to watch, and I'll remember as soon as we stop recording. But I'm gonna make sure I watch all of them because I think
Okay.
it's important. It's kind of like getting to know Wade by what he likes to watch. So it's good
Okay.
to know.
Tombstone. Have you ever seen Tombstone?
No, that was the one. That's the movie we're talking about. I have not seen Tombstone.
You've got to see Tombstone.
Yeah, I believe it.
Don't tell anybody if you don't like
No,
Tombstone.
now to be fair with movies, and this is the
Okay.
last point that I'll make, I really like movies that are more realistic. So I watched The
Okay.
Martian with Matt Damon.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
loved that movie. I've
Okay.
watched that one because I think that it's plausible. Like what he goes through, I think could happen. And then I don't know. There's another one you and your wife might like, which is Fly Me to the Moon with Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson. Have you seen that?
Yes, where they faked the
Yeah,
moon landing. We saw that.
I think that's a
Yeah,
good
that's
one.
pretty
So
entertaining. Yeah, that's
yeah,
a fun one.
it's more of a rom com than anything else. But anyways,
Right.
all
A
right. So now
little
off to
lighter.
exactly. All right, well, off to oil and gas land. Someone had commented or asked if I was actually learning anything from talking to you, or if I just spent the entire episode staring blankly into the screen while you talked. So, to rectify that, I would like you to quiz me on something, and we'll
Okay.
just see if I get it right or wrong.
Something that we've talked about before, or something brand new?
Let's probably something
I
we've
hadn't
talked
thought
about.
something that. Okay, something we talked about.
Yeah,
All right.
I don't
All right.
need something.
Well, I mean, you're going to hit on some high points. All right. So, man, I don't know. I could get really specific. All right. Can you tell me a couple different types of artificial lift,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
or why we would choose one other than the other, or something like that?
Okay, so I just think the only thing that comes to mind is ESPs, and that's the one acronym that comes to mind is ESPs. I know that there was plunger lift
That's
somewhere
right.
in
Look at
there.
that.
I don't
Plunger
know if
lift.
that's correct.
That
And
is
then
100%.
there were two other acronyms that I can't remember. It was like gas assisted lift, maybe GAPL.
GAPL,
Yep,
gas
GAPL.
assisted plunger
Yeah.
lift. Yeah.
So that's
Wow,
all.
look at
That's
that,
all
man.
I have. That's all I remember
That's
from artificial
that's
lift.
really good. Like
Okay.
you've pretty much hit like three of the biggest ones. Is
Okay.
It's like gas lift is a big one, plunger is a big one. You've also got ESPs, and then maybe a fourth one that's a big one too, but it's more like it's a rod pump. So
Okay.
those are the ones with the big horse's head out there and pump jacks and all that stuff.
How did I miss the rod pump? That is the visual that I get when I think of, a pump jack. So
I think you just proved that you're definitely paying attention, that you're definitely learning.
I'm trying to. I mean,
That's
yeah,
all
still
right. That's
thankful
good.
for Scott coming on, but no, I
Yep.
really I want to make sure everyone knows. So I think we might do this every week where you ask me a question about something we've talked
Okay.
about. And
All
so,
right. We'll
yeah,
do a pop quiz.
exactly. Got to keep it fresh. So,
Well,
all right.
well.
So kind of getting into last week again, we had the Mid-Continent Energy Forum. And we had a great time out there. We actually went on a podcast as guests with Matt Hill, and let's see who it was. Josh.
Josh McCollum?
Yeah.
Over
Just
Faro?
fantastic. Yeah, I had a great time. They have that
Yeah.
their
They have a great
location there,
setup.
and I'm jealous
right
of their
there. That was
podcast. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. But one thing, we had John Spear that was on stage. I think he was the kind of the headliner at Mid-Continental. Is that correct? Is that
Yes.
the gentleman? Okay. And
Spears and Associates.
just a thinker. You can tell the guy's done a lot of research over the past 40, 50 years, especially I think he kind of specializes in Oklahoma City or Oklahoma as a state, right? Or not necessarily.
Well, he lives in, I believe him and his brother both live in Tulsa.
Okay.
Yep. So they're mid-cap guys for sure.
Okay.
But they, they're looking at data all over.
Okay. So he had that chart, and you and I were standing there, or just kind of watching. It was about an hour long, and the chart with the frac crews, how they're completing 700 stages per quarter as compared to 300 per, before COVID, and it was honestly one of those charts that was just up and to the right constantly.
Right, just almost linear, right? I mean, it was just.
It was I could have put a ruler across it, and it would have been the same thing. So my question, and kind of what I'm thinking about, like that type of productivity, it's quite uncommon to see that sort of chart, right? Especially when it comes to outputs. Is that productivity going to continue going up, or is there something that we're missing within that data? What are your thoughts?
I think, I'll say this. I think at some point, you just start hitting a technical limit. You've kind of, what I'd say is you grab all the low hanging fruit, and then beyond that, I think that you optimize every single process that goes through there. And I think that's what that graph really shows, is that from pre-COVID to now, whenever I saw that, I thought of two things, right? I thought of one, they are spending a lot of time and effort in just trying to reduce the amount of time that they're out there on location, right? So they're trying to speed up the process just year after year after year. And the other thing I thought was too is like I've always kind of looked at the as a time of like, man, it was like prime oil and gas. It was amazing to be in oil and gas then. There was a lot of, a lot of hope, a lot of money going around. There was M&A all over the place. I mean, there was kind of like this sky's the limit type of an attitude at that point, in terms of like, we're going to put 20 wells per section in the merge and we're going to do all this stuff, And I think since then, what they've realized is like, we have to be a whole lot more economic than what we were kind of in that decade. And I think that that's what that graph illustrates. It just shows companies really kind of battening down the hatches and saying, we need to get faster. We need to get more efficient. We need to get, honestly, we just need to become more economic in these kinds of pricing environments. And so I think that's what that graph shows. Now, can it continue to go up and to the right like that indefinitely? I really don't think so. I think that there's a technical limit that you hit. Now, that doesn't mean that there can't be a new technology that comes out that changes that, but right now the graph showed no signs of breaking over, so I can't say that that we're on the cusp of it starting to flatten out. But you just can't continue to see that type of improvement year over year over year, to where they move out and they frack a well in one day in 10 years from now. For that to happen, there just has to be some kind of a technological change.
Well, and I think to your point on the economics, his next point that he made was that pay plans for CEOs and CFOs, they're all geared right now around optimizing cash flow, having a safety net, maybe not taking on similar risks, which I think that's interesting. And when I heard that, my first thought was, again, maybe they're thinking through some things that the general public wouldn't be thinking about in terms of the energy sector. But I don't want to read too deeply into it.
Well, I mean, I think what it looks at is like, we used to be in this huge growth mode. Like you look in the 2010s and everything, it was just, everything for us is what we called like sticks on the map. It's like, you drill a good well and then that proves up like 10 wells around you and you're out selling the value of those 10 wells. Now, in reality, since then everybody, and even then there were signs that, like subsequent wells aren't going to be as good as that one and all of that. And so, nobody's out there paying for all of those sticks anymore. And so, what we've really got to do is live within cash flow. And I think over the past decade, 15 years, we've really seen that transition. And like you just mentioned here, it's hitting everywhere, not just in our frac efficiency, but also in CEO pay. They want alignment with the carrot that they're putting out there. And so, they're going to pay for what they want to receive. And I think you see that in that compensation plans as well.
Agreed. I think another thing that was interesting was, I forgot the gentleman's name that came on and spoke after John, but the background of a lot of these CEOs isn't necessarily kind of your homegrown guys that have been in oil and gas for a long time.
Right.
It seems like a lot of them come from the Ivy League schools, and they're looking at maybe different things than someone that's putting their hands on tools, or like you trying to come up with how to drill a well the best way, right? I think they're looking at it from a different approach. So I've always been intrigued by that, perhaps even a little bit intimidated by talking to some of those guys, just because of their level of education is different. But at the end of the day, maybe the big thing is there a disconnect when you go to an Ivy League school and maybe you didn't grow up in the oil and gas field or in that culture? Does that ever cause any issues or strain a company's culture?
I'm sure it can. I think in every situation, I mean, if you've got, like you're talking about, kind of an Ivy League education and really heavily into the financials and all of those different things, like if you can't go out and execute on the well itself, if you can't get one down, if you're sidetracking, or if, you're having problems with your production and your flow back and all that stuff, like it doesn't matter how well you can work in a spreadsheet if you can't get the oil into the tank or the gas in the pipeline, because you're just not going to make any revenue. But at the same time, I think you've also seen what I would say is the flip side of it, to where if you're purely operationally driven, and you've got somebody who's just focused on saying like, well, we're just going to get as much as we can out of these wells and we're just going to rip them open. We're going to do all this stuff. Like at the same time, that can also hurt your economics. I think in all of these situations, there's a good balance between what I would say is the economic fundamentals of the well, but also being operationally excellent and being able to go out there and execute without one of those legs, like you just can't stand on your own. Like bankruptcy is
Yeah, you need.
bankruptcy.
No, it's real. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
there was another chart somewhere showing the bankruptcies and the
Right.
all the lot happens in that space for sure. Well, kind of getting maybe back to a question that we asked I think 2 weeks ago. We were talking about glycol pumps, and
Okay.
you'd come back to me and you're like, hey, look, can you ask me the question again? I want to do a little more research on it. So I
That's
can
right.
have, a little more of a detailed answer. So we're going to do glycol pumps part 2. But Wade, what is glycol and how are glycol pumps used?
All right. So my experience on the production side is limited. I did get to spend a good amount of time one week, like when Winter Storm Uri came through, working on dehyes, and that's where your glycol pumps really come in. So looking at a glycol pump, you really can kind of think of it as like the heartbeat of the system, I think. What it's doing is it's moving fluid through. So essentially you're pumping glycol. You could probably call it dry or lean. I'm not sure the perfect term there, but you pump this glycol through. It comes into contact with your gas, and what it does is it pulls the water out of it, right? And so now you've got this glycol that's got water there. You've got essentially dry gas that you can send down the pipeline. What you take is that glycol pump continues to move that water rich glycol. It moves it into a reboiler. That reboiler essentially is just it's a really hot vessel right there, pressure, temperature. It boils the water out of it. And so then when the water leaves that, you've got kind of lean glycol again, it's ready to take more water. And so you cycle that back through. And so a glycol pump is just cycling glycol through that system to remove water from your gas so that you can send it down the pipeline and not have all the issues associated with wet gas.
Okay. So
That's better than the
glycol,
first.
yeah. Glycol effectively then it's a chemical that is bonding with H2O or something similar to that. Okay.
It's
Okay.
grabbing water out of that gas stream, so that you can essentially just separate the water from the gas, and then separate the two and send the gas down the pipeline.
So you're taking me back to my high school days, my high school chemistry classes, right? So you got that
All
bonding
right.
and then that's going into a boiler. How a follow-up question to that, like how is the boiler heated? Is there like a heating unit? Is it an electrical system where it's heating? Like it probably varies as well, but
Yeah, that's a good question. On that one, I'm not as 100%. I would imagine that you've got both systems going. I'm sorry, a possibility for both systems, but oop, I'm not really sure on exactly which heating source is used there. A lot of times you don't want open flame around your gas, so it probably is electrical heating unit.
cool. Guys, if you know the answer to that question as far
That's
as,
right.
how
Help
is
us out.
the boiling unit heated, drop it in the comments and I will send you a DM and we'll get connected. I would just love to learn a little bit more about what you guys are doing on the field there.
Talk to us about dehighs.
Yes, please do. So, another question that I was coming across is there's companies that do something called spooling and banding.
Okay.
And to me, that sounds like something my mom would do with her quilting class, but it's probably nowhere near that. Could we
Right.
maybe share about what that is, and it might be a very simple operation, and maybe it's a little more complicated. I don't know.
Okay, so when spooling is essentially like putting something that's, let's say, well, spooling is like whenever you're putting a coil back onto a coil unit, right? So like you send it down hole and it has to straighten out, right? It comes out on this coil, it straightens out as you go down hole. Whenever you're putting it back onto the reel, you're spooling it up. It's kind of like think of it in terms of like spooling fishing line or something along those lines. It's just it's putting line on a reel is really what that is. Now banding is I don't want to say it's similar to that, but it's another process that could be associated with it. So what you can do is you can band like whenever I was doing production stuff down in the Arkoma in Southeast Oklahoma, if you were going to do like chemical injection, some people would put chemical and then just drop it in at the wellhead, but the problem is like that's 8,000 feet down is where you really want your chemical to take effect, and just dropping it in on surface, like it's got to how much volume do you lose just coating casing or coating tubing? What you can do is you can install like what you'd call like a capillary string, and you put that on your tubing, and then you essentially band it. So it's almost like, think of, I don't know that anybody really uses like zip ties, but think of like a metal zip tie that you would put in like every 20, 80, 100 feet, you will essentially band. So you put that, essentially that metal zip tie around there, that ring around there, tighten it down, and it just holds the string next to the tubing. So that would
Okay, so
essentially be banding.
and they could do banding on either coil or a drill pipe. Is that the idea? Am I getting the right visual?
I don't know that you really do it on coil. The problem with coil is that you would be running it in the hole with all of that attached to it, and that's on the OD of your coil. I don't know that you really band stuff to coil. I know on the production side you'd band onto your tubing and all that stuff, but I'd have to research a little bit more into banding on coil. I would think that'd be a pretty harsh environment to run in, 20,000 feet. With everything, with something banded on the outside of it.
Well, and I feel like coil, like the reason coil is there is there's kind of a speed element to it. I don't know,
Yeah,
I could be
100%.
wrong, but that
You don't
seems
have
to
to make
be more the
connections.
case. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
you can run in hundreds of feet per minute on coil, and you don't have to stop and pick up pipe and then screw it together and do
Right.
all those different things.
I
So,
can imagine
so
getting
yeah,
stuck with that would be tough. So there's companies that are dedicated just to spooling and banding. I find that interesting only from the perspective like you have a company that's running coil, you'd think they'd be the ones wrapping it up and getting it off site, but it seems that they might split that responsibility up for some reason.
yeah, there'd be there's just a lot of integration. So, I think a lot of companies could probably save money by doing it themselves, but there's niche markets everywhere, and so being able to do those things is, I wouldn't be too surprised to see that I might be surprised to say that that they do just coiling and, just
Yeah,
banding, but
yeah, yeah. I might be a little bit too direct on that. I'm sure they do more than that, but that was kind of their primary
gotcha.
offering. So it was kind of interesting to talk with them. But
And maybe they're doing some kind of like really, yeah, like really special kind of banding, or maybe it's under high pressure or something along those lines. And so it requires some special equipment or
yeah,
whatnot in order to be able to accomplish that. There's so much to learn and so much to do in the oil field.
yeah,
No one will ever learn everything there is to know about it, and so
right.
that also means that there's almost endless opportunity out there to make money and kind of, participate in completing and drilling and producing these wells.
Well, and that's part of the reason why, our company and, and talking to these operators directly and talking to the company owner and the guys that are doing the work, it's like it actually rounds out their operations better. And then for us, there's an opportunity to improve their programs, right? So
Right. Yeah.
I wish it was easier sometimes to tell the right story and give the right perspective, but it doesn't always work out that way. So
Yeah.
okay, so one thing that Matt Hill had brought up last week was fishbone wells. And I
Okay.
thought I'd ask you about them. I know that I understand they're somewhat, maybe not new, but they're not as often used. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But what is a
Yeah.
fishbone well, and why would it be advantageous to maybe use that method?
Right. So a fishbone well would be, say, a well with multiple horizontals drilling out of a single vertical. Those can be done in a number of different ways. Sometimes they'll hit different benches, So, like the first time I had ever heard of it was like a Bakken Three Forks well up in North Dakota. They'd go in and they'd drill. I can't remember which one they drill first. If they drill the deeper one first and then the shallower one, or the shallower one then the deeper one, but they'd essentially drill two horizontal wells out of that same vertical. And then I'd also heard about some stuff out in western Oklahoma. I think it was the Miss Lime, where they'd go out there and they would do 4 or 5 laterals out of a single vertical. So they'd drill one to the north, and then they'd kind of angle to the northwest and drill one there, and then further to the west, and then drill one there. And so, you've just got all of these producing horizontals out of this single vertical well. It just blows my mind to think about the kind of the complexity of that in regards to what you've got to do with casing strings and being able to do all of that. One of the big reasons why you would do that is because theoretically it would save money in not having to drill multiple verticals. That would be one thing, is like you drill one vertical well down to 7 or 8,000, 10,000 feet, and then you could drill 5 horizontals instead of having to drill 5 verticals and 5 horizontals. So that could save money. The other thing that, you could be forced to do it is say that you're on land is at a premium, like it's very protected or it's very expensive or just tons of different reasons why you would only, have room for kind of one pad in one area. And so that would help reduce your footprint and, you wouldn't have to have as big of a footprint on surface.
Yeah.
The challenge, though, I think, is like even though those, like number one, like you said, it's just not super common that's done all the time. So I would think that the risk, associated with mechanical issues is probably greater than what we normally experience. Just one vertical, one horizontal. The other thing I would think too is like you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket. So say that you've got 5 miles of horizontal coming out of that one vertical well in this section. Like if you've got a casing leak on your intermediate casing or whatnot, like that affects all 5 horizontal wells. Or if you have something happen on surface with your facilities or whatnot, like you've essentially got to shut in. Now you have to shut in 5 wells for problems with one set of intermediate casing. And so that can definitely increase your risk profile right there.
Yeah, and it's not like you're going to have a drilling engineer that's going to be like, okay, well, we drilled, this horizontal and we completely missed any, with no oil. Let's just
Right.
go ahead and drill another one. They're not going to, keep throwing good money after bad, I'd imagine too.
Well,
It's
that's
more
the other
like we're
thing. Like
producing and we're going to try another angle now.
you're usually drilling all of those at the same time. Like you'll go
Really?
in and drill one, and then you come back right back in. You don't produce it in the meantime, and so like, you've got 5 wells drilled before you even know exactly what the zone's going to produce. So that's another great point right there. Is the high uncertainty just in production, aside from all the mechanical risk.
Okay. Yeah, don't quiz me on that one next week. I don't think I'm ready for it. But anyways,
I'm
I
gonna
think
ask
it's
you to diagram out to us how that works. All
yeah,
right, I'm
exactly.
really
I
interested to see exactly.
I'm actually I want to figure out how to get like a whiteboard sort of thing up on this
Oh yeah.
screen while we're doing it because there are certain things I would love to draw out and like, have you go through different pieces. Like for example, another question I
We'll
have
figure that
today
out.
to kind of go
Okay.
off of that is, and you brought it up in answering the last question, but what is a sidetrack well?
Oh, okay. So a sidetrack is where you usually you drill down to a certain spot and then you decide, all right, we want to go back and restart somewhere earlier. Now, sometimes a sidetrack, like it can happen anywhere. It can happen in the vertical portion of the well. It can happen in a curve. It can happen in a horizontal. So, a lot of times in the vertical, if you sidetrack, it's poor hole cleaning or significant lost circulation, and you get differentially stuck, something along those lines. In the curve, maybe the zone was a lot higher than where you expected it to be. You're drilling your curve and you just can't hit that zone, or you don't get build rates from your curve assembly, and you're gonna hit low, and you're like, all right, pull it back and restart it. In the lateral, same thing. You go out of zone. You can see instability from maybe hitting a shale that you weren't planning on seeing, or getting differentially stuck from lost circulation. All those different things can happen, but essentially what you do is you just pull back to a point that you choose and try and drill another hole out of that. And so that's sidetracking is never something that people are very excited about doing. It's usually whenever you're
Yeah.
having issues or trying to prevent issues. So yeah.
The first time I came across it was we were going through well control concepts, right? And one of it
Okay. Yeah.
was if you have a blowout and you
Right.
can't get control of the well, then they'll drill a sidetrack in order to hopefully pull some of the
Relieve
pressure
pressure.
off of it.
Yep.
And so
100%.
I've come across that before. Never had to see it in action for that purpose, but
Right.
it's definitely
I
another reason to use it.
that's 100% another reason. I'd say that's probably a lot less common, but definitely the case. You should Google it. It reminds me of one of the craziest videos I saw. So there's a well in Russia, I think it was Russia, that they had like this huge blowout and nobody could contain it. And it was like burning for, I don't even, it may have been a decade or two, but it was like this huge, huge pit of just continual fire. And they drilled an offset well down close to it. They put a nuclear bomb in it and exploded it down hole to collapse the formation down there to cut off flow to the surface.
I saw that photo, and
It's
this was a
old. It's
couple
like
years ago.
70s, something like that, I want to say. Yeah.
It's an older photo. I thought, I mean, the comments, everyone was like, "This isn't fake. There's no way." So I'm curious. I want to look it up again now that I've
There's
kind of
like a
gotten a little
YouTube
deeper
video
into
out
it.
there.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm propagating fake news, but I mean, this thing was like,
yeah,
I saw this video first time like a decade ago. So it was
yeah.
kind of before, and they actually showed video of them like it looked like they were, dropping this, like it did.
Yeah.
It looked like kind of like sending a bomb down
And
hole.
this is
And I
this
just
is
then they
before
cement on
CGI.
top of it. Yeah, oh yeah. And then
Yeah.
they cement on top of it and they detonate it and like and then, short time after, like all of a sudden like the fire goes out on surface and they're like, all right, we finally solved it. So
This sounds like a scene from Armageddon, honestly. Trying to
yep.
take out that nuclear
Oh, okay, so another cool thing to think about now that you got me going on this
yeah.
is, like whenever they get the miners stuck down hole, like have you ever seen some they're not coal miners, maybe they are coal miners, but like I remember in what was it, Venezuela or somewhere years
Some of the
ago,
craziest, bravest people in the world doing that job.
they're
It's
down there
amazing.
like
Yeah.
mining coal. They see this collapse and they're stuck
Yeah.
down there. Well, they get a rig out there and they drill like this borehole and they go down and use directional drilling tools and all that stuff to get down and actually drill into that little pocket where they're stuck. And then they drop down those cages and pull them out and stuff. And like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. I mean, it blows my mind. It almost like makes me short of breath just thinking about being stuck down. I think you'd have to knock me out to pull me through like 8,000 feet of like borehole or whatever they pulled them through. Like, oh my gosh, I just thinking about getting stuck in there would be the worst thing ever.
Just last week, I mean, I have a fear of heights and I'm afraid of, small spaces, but there was a video of a guy that, had to find the exit of a cave. And I mean, he's crawling through, he has no room left
I
or
can't
right.
watch those. No,
I can't do
no,
it. But,
no.
but
You
just
didn't tell
got,
me you don't
yeah.
like heights. We go to dinner at Vast and you don't like heights?
Oh, but you see, I'm secured. I'm good. I'm in the middle of,
All right.
we sat in the middle of the building. It's
All right. As
fine.
long as
Like
we
we're
don't sit
good.
on the edge right there. All
Yeah,
right.
if I was sitting by the window, different story. But no,
Gotcha.
when I was 13 years old, my dad took my brother and I. It was a business trip. We had the opportunity to go with him to Colorado, and there's a huge canyon out there. I forget the name of it, but I have the video because they had this swing that you would strap into, and
Okay.
you'd pull this pin, and it would you'd fly out over the edge of it. So you got my dad in the middle, you got me on the left, and my brother on the right, and like you're supposed to link arms. And so they
Right.
bring you up like 100 feet, and then they tell me, hey, when you get to the top, we're going to tell you to pull the pin. So you just hear this tink, and I just remember my dad and my brother just screaming as we're going out. Like, just think, I mean, that solidified my fear of heights right there. Like you're
All
looking
right.
down this. Oh my gosh! Just
That
hoping to
would be,
God that cable doesn't snap.
oh, no kidding. That would be pretty crazy.
Cool. Well, hey, one of the things that we actually, speaking of going to dinner there at Vast, so we were talking about the three people that are always going to be on a drill pad,
Okay.
as things are happening, and it was one of those things where there's just so much going on, and we were talking about so many different things that kind of didn't gloss over it, but didn't remember everything. So you've got the tool pusher, you've got
Right.
the drilling contractor, and then there was another individual or person that would be on that site, kind of working along with it. Could you maybe walk me through that a little bit more, and who all needs to be there? Like who are the critical people when you're drilling a well?
Right. So, well, I mean, whenever I say that, I kind of mean like whenever things are going really south, and you start evacuating wells, normally what happens is the guys who are in charge and most responsible are still there trying to get it under control, until it's a point where there's just no chance, and then you just hope that everybody leaves. But what we were kind of talking about there was the three people. One's usually the tool pusher, so that's the guy who's responsible for the rig. He's kind of the head honcho on location in regard to the rig. Then you've got your consultant, your well site consultant, your company man, whatever you want to call him. That's the guy who's out there, usually tons of experience, oftentimes worked their way up through the rig, but they're kind of the representative for the operator, out there. And then you've also got your driller, which the driller's the guy who's standing on the floor or on the more modern rigs, sitting in the chair and moving the blocks up and down, controlling most of the rig operations. And so those are the three guys that are, I would say almost always on location, in terms of, especially in terms of some of those challenging situations.
Okay, yeah, and obviously, never a good situation when that is the event, but
Right.
it's interesting to kind of know who those players are in terms of, okay, let's get this thing back under control
Yeah,
and keep
definitely
moving
the
forward.
leaders on the well site.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. I did have another question for you, and this one came up today, and so I'm sort of, I know I give you very brief bullet points of like, topics before, but
Hit me with
nitrogen.
it.
Yeah, how
Okay.
is nitrogen used in drilling operations? And I know it's more than just drilling. I guess it gets used, all the way through production, but
Oh, yeah.
how's nitrogen used?
So nitrogen is used a lot of the times, especially I would say probably more on the frac side than it is on the drilling side, but we still use it occasionally on the drilling side. Really, what nitrogen is used for is to lower your hydrostatic pressure. All right, and so if you've got really bad loss circulation, or like more often than not, in on the drilling side of things, like you're getting ready to pump your cement, right? You've drilled a lateral that has, that doesn't have a very high pore pressure, or you saw a lot of losses on it. Your cement has to be like, say that you drilled it with a 9-pound mud weight, right, or an 8-pound mud weight, whatever it is, 8.5. That cement you're pumping is usually going to be at least 10.5. Usually your production cement's like around 13 pounds per gallon. But if you think about putting all of that cement down there on, pumping it through that formation or pumping around your annulus, like it's probably going to break down and cause losses, because as that cement's going around, it's also got that mud on top of it. And so your hydrostatic pressure is increasing as that cement starts to travel up the annulus in the vertical. And so essentially what you can do is you can pump cement, you can pump nitrogen ahead of it into your fluid. And what that does is it decreases the density of that fluid. It lightens the weight of that fluid, so that as that cement's coming around, that heavier cement is offset by a lighter fluid. So you're just trying to keep your bottom hole pressure as low as possible and your ECDs as low as possible. They do the same thing on the completion side, when they're doing a drill out or along those lines. Now they've gone out in that formation, they fracked it, and they're trying to circulate out plug parts and sand and all this different stuff. Well, you're trying to circulate out all this solid matter, but the formation isn't wanting to hold it. Well, what you can do is you pump nitrogen down with it. It lowers your ECD essentially, and then hopefully you'll, if you pump a certain amount of smoke with your fluid, then you can kind of carry everything out. And as far as nitrogen goes, it's used, it's inert, it's not going to explode and all that stuff. You start putting a lot of, you start mixing oxygen with all this stuff, and it can be problematic.
Got it. And that actually reminds me. So there was a comment we had talked about underbalanced drilling a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the comment was, and this is what I was pulling up, was the thought is that more hydrostatic pressure you have, the easier it would be to drill through the reservoir pressure. So would they use nitrogen in the sense that, okay, we're going to reduce the hydrostatic pressure on underbalanced drilling, or are they not even correlated?
You can. Yeah, you can. You could use nitrogen to reduce your hydrostatic. I wouldn't say it's common all the time in terms of just trying to get better ROP. It's not cheap. It's a little bit of a task to do from an operational standpoint, and so it's not frequently used. We'll also use it sometimes, like if you're differentially stuck. So this is a great topic. When you're differentially stuck, essentially what happens is you're drilling along, and you have losses to the formation, and there's essentially a vacuum created. And if it happens right at your BHA, which is where your like OD is the biggest, usually in your drill string, your OD is the biggest, right? Your BHA, like at your motor, your non-mag drill collars. What can happen is it sucks you next to the wall and creates this seal right there. And so essentially what's happening is like a vacuum is just holding your BHA against the wall. You can't pull out of it. You can't push out of it. You'll still have full circulation usually, but you cannot move your drill pipe. And so a lot of times what you can do is you try and offset that vacuum that's created by pumping nitrogen around and lowering your hydrostatic pressure. So that way your pressure differential is smaller, and you can pop your BHA or your drill string free. A lot of times you'll pump.
That's crazy.
It really is. It's a crazy scenario to think that like this little bit of vacuum pressure can prevent you. Like you could pull 250,000 pounds over and you still can't get it free. And you'll have full circulation. It's not like you're packed off or anything, It's just this vacuum that's kind of around you. And there's a number of different other things you can do. You can pump diesel around to lower the hydrostatic. You can pump nitrogen. A lot of times you can pump either diesel, or there's all different kinds of products, like chemical products that will sit right there. You can spot it, and it tries to either like degrade the formation. Like if you're in a lime or whatnot, you can like use hydrochloric acid to eat away at that lime, and hopefully it breaks that seal and you can pop free. Or you can pump a different chemical that will kind of eat away at your wall cake to try and break that seal, and then you can get free. But there's a lot of different things you can do trying to get that pipe unstuck. But diesel, nitrogen, those are a couple ways that you can do that.
I feel like we haven't exhausted that topic yet, but one thing that you mentioned was that you'll still have circulation.
Oh, yeah.
In what situations would circulation stop, or would you ever want to stop circulating the mud for any reason?
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of different reasons. Let's just in reference to what we just talked about, what I would say is a pack off event, right? So getting stuck is just a really general term, right? That just means I can't move my drill pipe, or I can't, I can't do what I want with it. I can't come out of the hole. I can't go down. That's what we'd call getting stuck. I would want to shut off my pumps if what would happen is if I experienced what I'll just call a pack off, right? And so essentially a pack off is like something is grabbing around you and you cannot circulate past it. So we'll be pumping mud downhole through the drill bit. And what we'll see is our returns on surface start to decrease, but the pump pressure starts going up. And so that tells me right there, like I'm starting to experience a pack off. Now, is that formation falling in on us? Is it swelling shale? Like there's a number of different things it could be. Sometimes it could be internal. Like if you get bit stuck and between your rotor and your stator, there's a good seal right there, and so you could do a number of different things to diagnose. Is it external to the pipe? Is it internal to the pipe? But that's when you would want to shut off those pumps is in a scenario where you're getting packed off. And so a lot of times one of the easiest ways, one of the determining factors of, hey, are we packed off or are we differentially stuck? Is if you've got full circulation, you're not packed off. You're differentially stuck.
Hmm. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, just there's always like you answer a question, then I've got 15 others that kind of spring out of it, and then
Right.
it's pretty interesting to hear.
Well, it's funny. It's the things that we do every day, that you don't think are unique or special, but to somebody who doesn't live it or hasn't been doing it for 15, 20 years, like kind of everything's new. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Wade, I don't know. I don't have any other questions for this week. I've got
Okay.
so many more, but I want to save the goodness and be
Okay.
respectful of everyone's time. So, thank you so much for meeting up this week and talking. What do you got going on the rest of this week? Anything fun?
Just working. We're drilling some wells right now and really enjoying that. And so that's been going good. Other than that, the weather in Oklahoma this week is actually amazing. The
No, I,
high
I heard
today,
it's
85
boiling
degrees.
hot. I heard it's
No,
really
no,
hot. No?
85 degrees is what it
All
is.
right. I'm
So
gonna have to call
it's
Carly.
awesome. The kids want to go camping. So I think we may go camping tomorrow night and spend a little bit of time outside.
That's right. It's Thursday. We got the weekend coming up pretty quick. So cool.
That's
Well,
right.
thank you guys for tuning in to Local Energy. I'll be moving this weekend with my family into a new place. So
Have fun with
uh,
that.
I'm super excited. Nothing better than being 35 and trying to move your entire life. But
I'll wait till you're 45 trying to do it, man.
I know. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you.